Okay, guys, we're going to get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, everyone, to this community conversation. And today is a sort of a special edition one based upon the news that Autodesk released last week around single sign-on. It's a Ask Me Anything session, and I'm very glad to have Scott Baker from the product team with us today, and he's going to sort of take and field some questions that you have. So let's jump into it. I'm going to do the basic intro. So this is a community conversation. This is a program that we have within Autodesk Community, and it allows us and people from the community and people from Autodesk to share their knowledge and have a conversation around the topic that we're going to discuss today. So this wouldn't be an Autodesk presentation without the safe harbor statement. So we're going to be discussing single sign-on today, and we may present some things and we may talk about some things that are forward-looking statements about the future of SSO and the future of Autodesk, and it's just to be mindful of not to basically make any purchasing decisions that you may make based upon what you may see in the following session. So a little bit about today. It's myself and Scott here. For those of you that have not met me before, I'm Jonathan. I'm the AEC Industry Community Manager here at Autodesk. And I've been in this role about 9 months. And prior to that, I worked for some of Europe's largest Autodesk partners, and I'm a former expert elite as well. I'm very happy to be joined by Scott, who's a territory solutions engineer. So I'm just going to pass over to Scott just to say a few words and welcome you to the community conversation, Scott.
Sure. Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, happy to be here. Obviously, the picture of me looks nothing like what you're seeing on screen live. Lost a little bit of hair since that picture, but nonetheless, that probably has to do with my tenure here. So I am a territory solutions engineer here with Autodesk, specifically on enterprise deployment licensing. Prior to that, here at Autodesk, I was in our IT group. I've been at Autodesk a little over 20 years and happy to be here and answer any questions I can.
Thank you very much, Scott. So today's agenda is pretty simple. We're going to take a little look at the new single sign-on feature that was released last week. So Scott's going to take you through that, and then we're going to jump into the Ask Me Anything session. So as we said, any questions, queries that you have, jump on the chat, put your hand up, and we can get and hopefully answer all of them queries. So I'm now going to hand over to Scott to take you through a few bits and pieces on single sign-on.
All right, thanks again, Jonathan. So standard plan. We had some big changes recently, specifically a week ago today, that we announced that single sign-on is now being included as part of all standard subscriptions. We got a lot of feedback over the course of the last few years regarding, the desire to have SSO be a standard offering in our solutions, and we were committed to enhancing that experience. So, especially since the onset of remote work became more prevalent with the pandemic that we all went through, data security and asset security are a top priority for customers, regardless of the size, anywhere from single shop, a couple people to enterprise level 500 plus customers. And so really the idea here was to really enhance the security benefits of just a standard subscription, so that it's included in all plans as well. You can go to the next slide. So really, what value does SSO bring? I'll kind of break it down into 3 buckets: enhanced security, better user experience, and streamlined administration. So what does that mean? So on the security side, I think we all can appreciate the fact that we probably manage multiple passwords, and we want to be able to provide a way for a single point of authentication. So passwords are all received and communicated and validated by the identity provider. I don't have to remember multiple passwords anymore. I don't have bad security habits such as writing down my password everywhere because I have 400 different passwords, and really just make the end user experience better. I think I speak for many of us that on a personal level, we probably all have a password manager. to manage all our personal logins that we have. And when I come to work, the last thing I want to do is try to remember even more passwords, one for my email address, email login, one for my maybe internal network login, one for my Autodesk products. By using SSO, you're really saving time for the end users and no longer requiring that multiple password or multiple account requirement. It's just a better way to manage from that experience. And on the admin side, I think you could appreciate that now we can enforce password policies. We also could enforce multi-factor authentication if we use it in our environment, all through just the use of SSO. I think by far the biggest benefit here is on the security side is if an employee is terminated or leaves, as soon as their account is deactivated, they'll lose access to all their Autodesk products and services they may have been assigned. So in a non-SSO world, if you had assigned a user to multiple products and or services in Autodesk account, you would need to proactively go through and deassign that user for each one of those. When it comes to SSO, you disable the account at the top level, and that immediately will remove that access because they can no longer log in. And I think that by far, as a former IT admin, is a huge win. So what to expect? Right now, if you are a primary admin in Autodesk account, when you log in, you'll see a notification that SSO is now available. Either the primary or SSO admin can set that up within Autodesk account. If you're currently a secondary admin or you need another member of your team to manage, they can be promoted to an SSO admin or even a primary admin. Typically, you would just be making them an SSO admin. We have a simplified onboarding process and online resources to get you up and running quickly. We've really streamlined the SSO setup and configuration, and I think you'll find it be quite simple to get up and running with little interaction, hopefully from the technical support team. So the biggest thing we have that I would highly recommend that I wouldn't say study, but go take a look at for sure, and that's our step-by-step documentation guide. This is going to give you step-by-step instructions again on exactly how to get up and running with SSO as quickly as possible. The resource guide is very specific for different identity providers or IDPs on each configuration step with detailed documented screenshots, and it's updated on a regular basis. We have a great FAQ section, troubleshooting section as well, and hopefully to, again, get you up and running without the need to reach out to our technical support team. Although they are there if you need them, of course, or you can, of course, reach out to your partner as well. But the idea here is that, we want it to be as streamlined and easy to get up and running process as possible, because probably like you, most of us don't want to, be on the phone with tech support unless we absolutely have to. And Jonathan, I think that's the last one for this piece.
Yep, thank you very much. So just a reminder, any questions, please pop them in the chat or stick your hand up. We've had a few come in, so I'm going to jump straight into them, Scott, if you don't mind. The first question is the version brackets the year of the Autodesk? Is the version year of the Autodesk version matters in terms of setting up SSO? Is SSO compatible with all previous versions of this?
We support 2017 and newer for SSO. So anything older than that will not be applicable. So you'll want to definitely be up to at least 2017. Further to that, I'd highly recommend getting up a little bit quicker or higher version rather, just from a support perspective in general. Typically we're current plus 5 or 3 previous, and you can have access to 2 more. So, but nonetheless, 2017 and newer.
Yeah. Perfect. Another one, how does SSO interact with roles within our cloud products? For example, ABC Pro and Build. Anything our cloud customers need to know about setting up SSO?
So from an SSO perspective, as soon as it's enabled on your domain, because it is a domain-wide setting, any service or product that's tied to and that Autodesk ID will be enforced for SSO login. So if you're logging into, again, the forums, you're logging into the viewer.autodesk.com, Autodesk account, AutoCAD installed locally, it's going to use they will all use your SSO authentication.
Trying to type it as well, trying to say, so yeah, everything. So it's all linked on the account.
All linked.
Enabled. simply, so it doesn't matter what product you have.
Correct.
Perfect.
Good way to summarize. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so scrolling down to the next one. When SSO is active, will Autodesk sign-in be forced? Well, let me check. So when our SSO is active, will my Autodesk sign-in be forced to be my email address? If so, will that be products only and also the forums community? So we've sort of half answered that.
It based on your email address. So your Autodesk account will be, if you're a self-managed Autodesk account and your administrator turns on SSO, that account, the first time that you attempt to authenticate with that email address, it will convert that account essentially into an SSO managed account. The old password you were managing will no longer be relevant, and you will be then forced to use that email address and password of that corporation or the company you work for. So it is, again, it's domain wide. It's going to apply for your Autodesk ID, and you'll be required to use your email address for login.
Perfect. Okay, so the next one is, if a user leaves the company and the customer doesn't have premium, then they wouldn't be automatically taken out of the Autodesk account. Does the customer need to move them to a group that doesn't have SSO turned on? Or what is the best practice when someone leaves the company so they can no longer log into the products with Autodesk account credentials?
So keeping premium out of this. So premium is not required for SSO. SSO is not a standard offering. So granted, they will not, if you had SSO enabled across the board, they will, as soon as the account is disabled on the directory level, so in the corporate credential system, typically Azure AD or ADFS, when that is disabled, they lose all access to products and services just from a login perspective. You'll want to go and remove them from any groups you potentially have because you don't have directory sync, which is a premium component. But nonetheless, once the account is disabled in the directory structure, they will lose access to anything they've been assigned to.
Perfect. And scrolling down to the next one. Is SSO still limited to being enabled for an entire domain only? Are there any methods to enable SSO only for users on a single contract in the instance where a company may hold multiple contracts?
No, it is a domain-wide setting. So once it's turned on, it will apply to anyone that uses that domain level email address. So, you can't limit it to a scope of individuals. During the setup and configuration process, you have the ability to test with a group of up to 30 users. However, that's a temporary setting. So you'll need to apply it, corporate-wide. The only way out of that would be using non-corporate email address structure for anyone you didn't want managed under SSO.
Yep, makes perfect sense, I guess. Then the next one is, what happens when a subscription expires in terms of SSO? Does it still run forever for an expired user?
So I think the question here is, if I've enabled SSO and my subscription just expires, just making sure I'm following this, will SSO be disabled? I think is the question. As soon as a subscription contract expires, we do have a deprovisioning process for SSO. I do not have the specifics on that, but it will not stay in perpetuity if you're not paying for a subscription of an Autodesk product. In the past, that was limited to premium. Of course, if you went from premium to standard, then of course you'd lose the SSO capability, but you would still have a valid product subscription likely for something because you were just taking away the benefit of premium. Now that it's at the basic level, if you chose not to, say, resubscribe to AutoCAD or AEC Collection or something to that effect, there will be a process for removing SSO or stopping the use of it.
Yeah. The next one is an interesting one. So if my current Revit username is not my email address, I will need to delete all BIM 360 ACC locally cached files to avoid issues with changing of the Revit username. I'm not sure if that's an SSO exact thing.
Yeah, not 100% sure on that particular one, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think we may have to dig a little bit deeper on that, because that's the username. So it is SSO, because SSO is changing the sign-in. Is that what we're saying, that when we set up SSO, that's configuring and setting the username? Typically in Revit, your email address would show when you're signed into Revit.
Your Autodesk ID still has an email address associated with it. So that's where I'm not following that completely. Revit username is not my email address. You typically in Autodesk ID, well, some Autodesk IDs will have a different Autodesk ID name than they will, that might not match, that won't necessarily be the email address. But once SSO is turned on, that Autodesk, you will be required to use your email address to sign in, and it will be recognized in Autodesk account that that email address is tied to that Autodesk ID. As far as it affecting the BIM 360 ACC locally cached files, I'm not 100% sure. I understand that. I see the comment there. When you sign in now, you use the username. You will be forced, though, once SSO is turned on, to use the email address. Whether or not it updates that username, I do not have specifics on that. We can table that and make a note to get back to you, David.
Yeah, we can run a test, because mine is set up like that. It shows my username rather than my email address, but it's still all linked to the email address. So
it's still linked to the email address. I still need to double check that, because I'm not 100% sure. Your Autodesk guy, yeah, I think we should table that one, just because we have a lot of comments coming in on that one.
Yeah, it's like, will it affect the
it's
forum?
going to
I
affect,
think ultimately all will become on the email address, but we will.
I think the main question is, will the Autodesk ID username, not the email address, update to the email address once SSO is enabled on a non-SSO account currently? So that I'm not 100% sure if the username is updated. We can table it again and get back to you on that. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. And just for the simple fact, we have SSO here internally, and we have Autodesk IDs in our system that still represent the old Autodesk ID that they would have had. So it didn't overwrite with the email address. So it did not update to that level. But I'd rather table it and make sure that's what we got.
Yeah, let's just confirm. I'm nearly sure on mine, because I'm on SSO.
Sure.
Mine doesn't change, but as we said, David, we will drill a little bit deeper on that and confirm, because it's a little bit up in the air, that one. Is there any other questions coming through? I have had a few that have come through via the community on the posts that we had there. So one of the questions that did come through via the community conversation post on the community was, is there a workaround for companies that have one sign-on for a person? They've seen it where they have a mixture of licensing still, and the SSO has had issues when they need to change it over.
So if a user has more than one email address in the system, you can set the email mapping to the UPN or user principal name to avoid confusion between primary and secondary emails. While it's possible that UPN has to be formatted as a valid email address, so they won't receive product emails updates via that communication method. So we definitely recommend using email values for email mapping, ensuring all users have their primary work email address in Autodesk account as the primary, so that there's no issue there.
Yeah, perfect. I think Tiana's just added it in as well. Another one that has come in to me directly is, does the SSO change access to network license products?
Sorry, could you repeat that, Jonathan?
Does the SSO change access to network license products?
No, it does not. Network licensing is self-contained within a customer's environment, does not communicate with Autodesk. When you are running AutoCAD that's network licensed to your own local internal license server, there's no authentication with Autodesk ID occurring there.
Okay, perfect. I'm just searching for the next question. I've got lots of notes here. One that did come in, which has been covered with what happens if someone leaves a company. So that is covered. And somebody's asked that why are they required to enter their email twice to log in?
Why are they required to enter their email twice to log in? So Autodesk SSO uses an user's email domain to authenticate and redirect the user to the organization sign-in page. So after the user enters their email address on the Autodesk sign-in page, a second sign-in screen from the organization appears. So then they must re-enter their username and password. It's necessary for security and just the functionality of how that works.
So it's just to get them in the right place. So enter it in first, find out who you are, and then shift you across. Just wondering if there's any other questions coming in. I'm just trying to track the chat. I don't think I have missed anything. So anybody got anything else while we are here that they want to ask, they want to see? Please feel free. We'll just put a quick shout out for anyone. Any more questions that people want to ask Scott when he's here? So one has just popped in. Can users sign in on private devices using SSO?
Yes, they can. So we do not, there is no device level authentication or mapping when this occurs. So users can sign in on their corporate device, their private device, but their corporate email credentials will be required because SSO is enforced regardless of where they log in from. So while they can sign in on a private device, the security is still intact from an SSO perspective.
Okay, so there's doesn't seem to be anything more coming through. Thank you very much, Scott, for answering all the great questions. Thank you for everyone for asking them. Just a little bit of slides before we wrap and finish. So this is a community conversation, although this is a slightly different one where we've held it where we've got Scott into the community, but anyone can have a community conversation. So if you've got some knowledge and experience that you want to share, please connect with the community, connect with myself or Tiana or anyone in the community. Go to the Get Involved page and you can learn more on how you can submit your proposal for what you may want to cover. And the final sort of slide is just to say that we are in various different places across the community. So you've got the forums, we've got a Voices blog, we've got the journal, conversations, and we're everywhere all over social on Autodesk Community. So please feel free to jump in and connect with us there. And I just want to finish by saying a very, very big thank you to the community for coming to here, for asking all the great questions, and a huge thank you to you for answering all the questions and putting yourself out there. So it's thank you very much for me. I'm going to leave the final word with Scott. And over to you, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Just echo the thank you for stepping in and joining here today and asking questions. Do appreciate it. I definitely owe a couple one response back, but I'm pretty sure I have that answer in the meantime, but we'll take that offline. But again, thank you, and appreciate everyone's time today.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys, and we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.